Alright, what is going on, guys? Got another breakdown for UFC Vegas 71. This one's on the prelims at Bantamweight. We got Tony Gravely taking on Victor Henry. Henry, the older fighter, 36 years old, or thereabouts, excuse me, he's 35, soon to be 36. They're about even on reach. Negligible 1 inch reach advantage for Tony Gravely, and Henry is 2 inches taller. So I guess I'll start with Victor Henry. This will be his third fight in the UFC. Comes in as a big underdog against Tony Barcelos and puts on the fight of his life. Just stays in his face, high output, absolute war. But Victor Henry, the clear winner, and he ends up shocking the world with that one. That was one of the bigger upsets in the men's weight classes that I can remember. I think Barcelos was like 5-1, something crazy like that. So it was a big win for Victor Henry. And then he comes in as too big of a favorite in my eyes against Rafael Sunsao. Sunsao also on this card, so we talked about it in that video. But Sunsao is still a beast, and Sunsao was in vintage form that night. Just couldn't get a hold of him. Henry couldn't get a hold of him. And, Henry always has good cardio, but it didn't matter because the Sunsao was just a step ahead of him with the footwork, was landing these counters and sneaking in these takedowns at opportune times. But, stylistically, Victor Henry, very good footwork himself. He moves well, heavy on his lead leg, has that kickboxing frame, but he will take the center of the octagon. He's not just a guy that backs up the whole time, though he is pretty decent fighting off of his back foot. But, he's got a good guard, too. He's got a good submission game. He is susceptible to getting taken down, but again, the get-ups are there. I think the takedowns are going to loom large in this one. It's going to come down to, can Henry stop the takedowns? Because you look at his last loss against that Russian guy, Lavrentev, I think it is. He lost that one, and it was mostly because he was getting control in the grappling. Not a ton of output from Henry in that one, but he's fought a lot of his fight career in Japan. He's fought a lot of high-level opponents, so that's why he has a higher world ranking than Tony Gravely coming into this fight. He's a very fun fighter to watch, longtime protege of former UFC fighter Josh Barnett, and it's just a shame he didn't get to the UFC a little bit earlier because if this guy got here when he was like 28 or something, he could have been a problem. But he's still a very game fighter for this matchup. That's kind of a story with this card. It's got a couple high-stakes divisional matchups that matter for the rankings at the top of the card. That's just got a lot of fun scraps on the prelim portion. And for Tony Gravely, a solid fighter himself, he's had a tough go of it in the UFC because, one, bantamweight is such a shark tank. Again, Gravely is a decent fighter, but just at this weight class, it shows how good it is that he's ranked kind of towards the bottom. But he's won more fights than he's lost in the UFC. He got choked out by Brett Johns. That is a little bit of a problem with Tony Gravely. He's lost by submission a few times. He does get his neck snatched up. He seems to have worked on it in the last couple years, but it is something that always needs to be mentioned for Gravely, especially because he likes to wrestle so much. And against Nate Maness, he drops him at the end of the first round. It was looking like, no, it wasn't looking like. If that happened at any other time, even just like with 10 seconds left in the first round, Tony Gravely wins that fight. Maness was hurt bad, and Gravely was following up with ground and pound immediately. It just literally happened right at the buzzer, and Maness was able to survive. And Maness is tough, he recovered quick, and he was able to get the counter right hook in the second round and put Gravely away. I picked Maness in that one, but I didn't expect it to go like that. I think that it was a good performance for Tony Gravely. Just kind of got really unlucky there. But, he's bounced back 2 wins in a row, got the big-time knockout of Johnny Munoz, who's a solid fighter, solid jiu-jitsu. It was even money because I think that people were looking at that sub-ability of Johnny Munoz, and I probably had money on Munoz in that fight for that reason. I can't remember, but I'm sure I did. So that was a good win. And against Simon Oliveira, I'm not too high on him, but it was a good win for Gravely. Just rinse and repeat, lots of takedowns, and that's kind of the story with Gravely. American top team, very good wrestler, not the best at holding his opponents down, but he is one of those guys that can just be a takedown machine, and he's just going to march forward and look for those hooks. He's got very heavy hands, a lot of power. Like we were saying, he dropped Maness, he dropped Johnny Munoz, he dropped Oliveira at one point. And the losses are respectable, too, for the most part, especially the last one against Javid Basharat. So, for this one, it's really close. The odds reflect that. Tony Gravely, small underdog at plus 120. And I'm going to go with Tony Gravely, but it really comes down to can he get the takedowns. And you do have to watch him getting submitted while he's on the ground. Again, I think he's shown improvement in that regard. He hasn't really looked in danger of getting submitted. And I mean, against Simon Oliveira, that's a guy who just looks for guillotines, and he has a good guillotine too. It's to his detriment because he looks for it too much. He ends up, getting controlled. But he did have a tight attempt on Gravely in the first round, and then it was easier to fight out of after that. But it was good to see him fight out of that because, again, it has been something that has been a question mark for Tony Gravely, so he will have to watch getting submitted. But I do think that he is going to be able to find these takedowns. I don't think it's necessarily because you look and say that a Sunsal took Henry down. I think that was just really good timing and application of those takedowns by a Sunsal, mixed them in really well. I think in this matchup they're going to be expecting the takedown a little bit more, but I also like how Tony Gravely has the power. That's another thing in his column, but yeah, if he's not able to get these takedowns and do anything with them, he's going to get outworked, and Victor Henry's going to win. So that's why it's so close. But I'm going to go with Tony Gravely as a small underdog. Probably not going to bet it. We'll see if the line expands. Then maybe I will. But I do like Tony Gravely in this situation ever so slightly. So thanks for watching, guys. Sure, subscribe and take it easy.